Giant wolves are an unfortunately common danger in the Old World. These lupine predators can be found almost anywhere, ranging from Bretonnia to the Darklands in nomadic packs. When times are good, they stay far away from civilization, content to prey upon deer and bison while men cut back the forest and sow their fields. When the winds of winter howl down from the world's edge mountains, however, the wolves descend with them. They are a perennial threat to those living in the eastern provinces of the Empire, returning every year to feast upon livestock and careless travelers. The wolves are routinely culled by huntsmen, but they continue to return year after year. In most lands, that's where the story ends. Man and wolf fight, both suffer casualties, and the two forces separate once more as the snows begin to melt. In places where dar pools like a foul miasma, however, death is not the end of this conflict. Dark magic seeps into the soil, finding the fallen wolves and infusing their corpses with fell power before returning them to a hideous parody of life. These reanimated beasts are known as dire wolves, and their chosen prey is mankind. Dire wolves are massive, standing taller than a pony at the shoulder. They are also, to an individual, grotesque to look upon. The magic powering them overwhelms their rotting frames, bursting their abdomens and exposing their innards to the midnight air. The skin covering their heads slips away, revealing oily bone and worm-ridden muscles. Any fur that remains is sodden with body fluids, both their own and those of their victims. Pinpricks of eerie light shine from within their hollow eye sockets, and their bodies collapse into grasping tendrils of mist upon being destroyed. Despite this decrepit state, dire wolves are no less powerful than their living counterparts. Their senses remain as sharp as ever, and they are exceptionally fast, capable of outpacing an unburdened warhorse with ease. This makes dire wolves exceptionally dangerous on the charge, as they use their momentum to leap upon and overwhelm any unfortunate creature they catch. Dire wolves also retain a living wolf's talent for pack hunting, and they often congregate together to attack more dangerous prey. A single dire wolf may be a match for an isolated farmhouse, but a large pack can butcher entire towns if given the chance. As spontaneously generated undead, dire wolves don't need to be reanimated by some outside power. Feral dire wolf packs can be found roaming haunted woodlands, completely unbeholden to any master. While ravenous and cruel, these wild undead wolves are uncoordinated in their malice. Only in the service of a greater evil, such as a vampire, do they reveal their true potential. In times of war, the wolves act as hunting hounds in a vampiric army, using their speed to encircle the enemy position. Their loping strides let them harry cavalry, ravage war machine crews, and destroy routed units while the zombie and skeleton core of the army bogs enemy infantry down in a battle of attrition. It should come as little surprise that Sylvania is absolutely infested with dire wolves. As a land steeped in dark magic, every wolf slain by Sylvanian hunters is at risk of rising once more. Huntsmen have taken to burning and burying any wolves they kill, but all too often this is an exercise in futility. Even worse, the province's von Carstein masters actively promote the creation of dire wolves. Masters of both men and beast, Vlad's Get are incredibly talented at commanding these wolves. The beasts view the vampires as their pack leaders, and will fall into line with a minimal expenditure of arcane might. In addition to their ready servitude, the von Carsteins enjoy how direwolves parody the noble hounds of the Empire. For all their claims of supremacy and disdain for mortals, Sylvania's Dark Masters are compelled to cloak themselves in the trappings of nobility. Von Carsteins treat the rotten wolves like a baron might treat his hunting hounds, housing them in pens beneath their castles during times of peace. Enterprising vampires will even engage in a perverse form of animal husbandry, choosing the most vicious direwolves for further augmentation. These exceptional undead wolves are fed a steady diet of peasants and dark magic until they are significantly stronger and smarter than their fellows. Known as Doom Wolves, they possess a cruel cunning that lets them lead their fellows to even greater acts of savagery. While normal direwolves possess the pack-hunting instincts of the wolves they were made from, a Doom Wolf brings an almost human-like intelligence to the packs they command. Hunters expecting a fight with dull beasts rarely survive their first encounter with packs led by doom wolves. Dire wolves are a hound unit on the Vampire Counts roster in Total War Warhammer. They cost 500 gold on multiplayer, which is nearly 100 more than their counterparts in other factions, like Chaos Warhounds and Goblin Wolf Riders. Their unit card doesn't seem to justify this price hike. Dire wolves can be knocked over by a stiff wind, with 0 armor, 14 melee defense, and 35 leadership. 0 armor is exceptionally bad, as dire wolves are one of the few units without armor that doesn't have significant physical resistance to compensate. Every bit of damage an enemy sends their way will be felt in full. They aren't much better offensively either, with only 26 melee attack and 22 weapon strength, only 3 of which is armor piercing. Their charge bonus of 28 is alright, but anything with even halfway decent defenses can withstand a direwolf attack without taking significant damage. That doesn't matter though, because your direwolves aren't attacking units with halfway decent defensive stats. With their speed of 95 in Vanguard deployment, direwolves excel at getting into enemy back lines and shutting down gun lines, artillery pieces, and skirmish cavalry. They can swoop down on a unit of handgunners, deal a lot of damage, and escape before enemy infantry or cavalry can respond in kind. Even if the wolves can't escape, they'll likely pay for themselves before they kick the bucket. Considering how dangerous cannons and Hellstorm rocket batteries can be for infantry-based vampire count armies, having a disposable unit that can quickly take care of such threats is a must-have. At this point, though, we still haven't answered a fundamental question about direwolves. Why are they more expensive, but roughly equivalent, if not worse, in stats to other hound units? The answer lies in their faction. As undead, direwolves can't be routed, only crumbled. That means they can continue damaging their opponents under circumstances that would see their counterparts running off the battlefield. Even better, direwolves can be supported by some of the best lores of magic in the game. The lore of vampires is particularly effective, as it can heal them both actively and passively, compensating for their weak defenses, and effectively giving them a much larger hit point pool than other hound units. Between these perks, a unit of direwolves is roughly equivalent to their cheaper counterparts on a point-for-point basis. Truth be told, I don't think too much of direwolves. They're little suicide runners that have a 50-50 shot of taking out an artillery piece or two before being destroyed by a unit of Empire Knights. They can't even scratch dwarves. If I'm playing vampire counts and want a unit that just disrupts ranged units, I'd rather have Fellbats. They're cheaper, can fly, and have a much higher melee defense stat so they can stay in combat for longer. If I'm trying to quickly kill ranged units, I'd rather choose from the vampire count's plethora of shock cavalry. Direwolves fall short on both counts. They have their place in multiplayer, especially domination mode where capture weight matters, but in campaign, they're borderline worthless. Direwolves just aren't good enough to warrant the micro they need to pay off. If you're playing a themed army or like them for whatever reason, by all means play with them, but I try to phase them out as soon as possible. That brings us to the end of our direwolf overview. I know I ended on a sour note regarding their gameplay potential, but I like their in-universe lore. All too often, direwolves in fantasy settings draw their inspiration from paleontology, making them little more than giant wolves. I don't mind a bit of paleontological inspiration, but when it takes the form of wolf, but big, I do admit that it's a bit boring. I love that Warhammer decided to make direwolves undead monstrosities come back to hunt again. It makes them more unique, especially the detail about turning into mist upon being slain. That idea really caught my eye, and actually inspired me to make this video. It felt perfectly suited for our third Spooktoberfest, which seems to be giving the von Carsteins their due after last year's Strigoi and Tomb Kings focus. I wonder what that means. Anyways, that's all I have to say for now, so until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.